All right. Thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
Thanks, Nighthawk. Hey, everyone. This is Dave. Becky's not feeling entirely himself today. That's what's going on. I have Irish relatives and they're spitting in their graves. My accent is so terrible. But don't you worry. My kids think I'm a leprechaun when I speak like that. Oh my goodness. So, like I said, I'm Dave. Becky can't be with us. This is Platos Cave. Good morning, wherever you are. If you're in the US Eastern, then it should be 7 a.m. That's what I believe it should be. And grab yourself a cup of coffee and let's join us. Just join us. Sit around and listen to Platos Cave. If you're catching this on YouTube or Rumble, I'm not doing Spotify yet for Platos Cave. I want to make a whole new channel for that, but there you go. We're broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio. Is it Australian enough that I speak like this? Or should I go bigger? No, I shouldn't. I shouldn't do that. I'd be false. I'm not who I am if I'm doing that voice, nor if I'm doing the leprechaun voice either. So, this is Home to Fresh Ideas. You can join us in the chat room while we're on air. Do that. And I should join the chat room. That'd be great. Let me see. Where are the chat? Where's my chat room link? That's really weird. Hang on a sec. There it is. I'll be with you in a minute, chat room. Or I should just say chat. I've been watching a whole bunch of live streamers and they just refer to everybody in the chat as chat. That's it. I think it's pretty good. I should do the same thing. Oh, so we've got Comet. Thanks, Comet. I would change my settings and then start adding people. Hey, Dave. Feel better soon, Mackie. That's from Comet. Thank you, Comet. And Fleddy. Thicken up that accent, Dave. Like the copper at the ending scene in the movie Point Break. He's getting away. I remember Point Break, but I don't remember that ending. But that's alright. It's my problem. It's on me. But Fleddy, that's pretty funny. Even in Mad Max, there isn't that much Australian either. Even I have to say, Mad Max himself is from New Zealand, but that doesn't matter. And he got the job because he was in a bar fight, and he delivered a friend to the auditions, and then they called him back, and he got the job, but he wasn't even going for anything. They go, "Oh man, look at you, you're rough as guts. What happened?" "Oh, just fine, don't worry about it. It's all good." Anyway, where was I? Buy some merchandise. That's what you have to do. Support the station. The station is listener supported. It's listener funded. Mickey and I don't get any money for this, even though we've been doing this 14 years. 14, or 14th year, I think that's what it is. We've been doing it for so long, I've even forgotten how long it's been. I had a great conversation with someone today, but I'll get onto that a bit later on. And if you like anything that we say, no doubt you'll like another host. So jump into the archives. The archives are free. You can download the shows in MP3 format. Makes a lot more sense when you want to go away and you're on, you've got to put your device into flight mode, and you can just binge the shows that you'd like to hear. It's pretty cool. Now, we haven't gotten into Discord yet, but no doubt we will start our Platos Cave flavor and shiny side out flavored Discord, all within the same thing, different chats, and see what we can do with that. Because I heard, I heard that Microsoft is discontinuing Skype. It's going to be crazy days as we adjust to a new platform. But I don't think we're venturing very far. The station's making its mind up at the moment, but we'll find out. We'll find out soon enough as they sunset the old Skype. Skype turned into Teams anyway. That's what it, and it used to be a communication server in the olden days. Not unified. UC, I think UCX was. I think that was Cisco. But anyway, moving on. Like, you can join me in the chat room. It's fantastic. You can talk to us, and I can see Fletty and comment in there. Now, tune in to us online on your smart device directly via an app, or listen at home on a Grace tabletop digital radio. And I'm just going to say, I'm broadcasting out of Darkinjung country. That's where I'm coming from today. You might hear me say that from time to time. I might be in other places, but I learn who did a better job at keeping nature the way it was, even though they had to burn everything and all the plants had to work out what to do, but at least it got rid of all the foreign pests that weren't used to bushfires, because now the Australian bushland survives on fire, and in some cases the plants themselves require fire to germinate. Isn't that interesting? It becomes an avenue for like if there wasn't any fire, I think the plants would just sit there and, oh, when's this fire coming? I don't know. We need some fire. In fact, I've seen a fire so bad that all the soil was burnt and it left sand, only sand. All the carbon from the soil was burnt. That's crazy? It's really crazy. Anywho, now moving on. The biggest news that you'll wake up to today, if you're in the US, it is the two ships that collided, I think it's 200 nautical miles or something off Britain's east coast. It's pretty bad. One of them is American Navy fuel, jet fighter fuel, A1 fuel, which is highly flammable, clearly. And it was stationary. It was just moored, anchored down, sitting there. And then this other ship comes along and decides that's not good enough in the fog. And with radar operating, completely missed the target, and it wasn't very good for anybody, because they were carrying the second ship, not the one that had the American aviation fuel in it, but the other one. It said it's a container ship, and it had 4 entire containers filled with sodium cyanide. Just let that sink in for a minute. So sodium cyanide is a highly toxic chemical, and it reacts with water to produce hydrogen cyanide gas. Terrible. The solution of sodium cyanide in water is corrosive and strongly alkaline. And it basically is a complete hazard to anything that lives. Any living creature. So the question here is, how does sodium cyanide react with water? It's a good question. Well, when sodium cyanide dissolves in water, it releases hydrogen cyanide gas. The gas is not hazardous unless it is in an enclosed space. So if it was the only thing you're breathing. In acidic water, toxic amounts of hydrogen cyanide gas form immediately. It's not a slow process. Now, carbon dioxide from the air is acidic enough to react with sodium cyanide even if it didn't come into contact with water, and that still produces a hydrogen cyanide gas. Now, what are the effects of this sodium cyanide? So sodium cyanide can cause seizures, vomiting, and loss of consciousness. It's very toxic to aquatic, we say aquatic. In England, oddly, they say aquatic organisms. And it may have effects on the thyroid. That's not very good at all. So the big question that's been asked in all of the media is, how could a moving ship with radar and enough crew not to, to have shifts, so someone should always be looking at the radar. If you're in fog in a shipping lane, you really should be looking at the radar. And how you've got to ask yourself, how did they run into another ship? You can steer a ship if you have enough distance from the thing you're going to impact with, especially if it's another ship. So how on earth did it happen? My first thought, I'm not saying this is the case, but my first thought was that intentional? I don't think we'll get to the bottom of whether it was or not. It's like that ship that hit the bridge in the US. My first thoughts were it was intentional. There's an amount of negligence in anything. Whether you're watching dash cam, because it's got a little hobby. I don't know, it's really morbid hobby, but I like watching dash cam owners of Australia. I love that. It's crazy how bad people drive. It's not always what you're seeing on the cam. Sometimes it's even a cam driver who's plucked up the courage to post it for themselves, which is fantastic. That's really humbling to see that they do that. But the amount of people who are negligent while driving, causing mishaps, causing damage to other vehicles, it ruins your whole day. It could be longer, it could be weeks if you've got significant enough damage that your car needs to go into a repair shop. Then, and depending on your coverage, you may not have a temporary replacement vehicle in your coverage. So then you're out of car, and then your whole family suffers because you're a car down. And if you're in LA, that would be really bad because, at least where I live, there's tons of public transport. You can get pretty much anywhere that people live with public transport, almost anywhere. In one form or another, train is the predominant. Then I'd have to say light rail is getting. We have driverless trains now. That's called Metro. And we have a bus service. We have taxis and Uber and whatever you want to call them. Right. We have all of those things, and you can get somewhere by as many methods as you need. Our country is huge. It's like the US. So to go any great distance, you'll probably fly. But most of us drive. I'm going to say most of us drive. If you're going on holidays, it's not beyond people to drive 1,000 kilometers. You do the math. If it was 1,600, it'd be 100. 1,600. Say, 1,600. It'd be 1,000 miles, but it's less. Like anywhere between 600 and 800 miles, we'd be happy to drive for lengthy stay somewhere. Not awful, because most everything's around about 1,000 kilometers away. Our cities are poised enough so that Sydney to Brisbane's nearly 1,000, Sydney's nearly 1,000, Adelaide to Melbourne, it's kind of nearly 1,000. So we're kind of dotted like evenly. But then you got Perth, which for some reason people say is a satellite city they didn't launch far enough, as far as I'm concerned. And I know it was a 1980s comedian who said that. I do not remember his name. I didn't write the joke. It's yours, buddy. It's still yours. It'll forever be yours. I loved it. I love this TV show that they used to have. It was a very small comedy venue, very, very small. I mean, maybe 8 tables. Comedy Store, I think it was called, the Comedy Store, near Wynyard Station in Sydney. It was really great. And they telecast it to our government channel late at night on a Saturday night or what have you. I forget when it was. Early on a Saturday night. Yeah, possibly. It was in the 80s. So, yeah, bear with me. That's 40 years ago. I remember it was. I used to record it, and I had it on VHS for a while, until we lost that technology. And then I never, transferred it to DVD. It wouldn't have been worth it, and it was grainy as hell. Do you know? Have you been surprised at how awful VHS was to watch, or live television broadcast? Do you remember what they used to look like when we had aerials? It was we had a professionally fitted aerial on our house, but because of our proximity to the Channel 7 studios, wasn't very far away, it caused all the other channels to be so weak that we could barely pick them up. This overwhelming broadcast from just over the hill, and therefore everything had shadows. There were shadows of the main character, and then there were shadows of the shadows, and only people in Gen X would understand what I'm talking about, because otherwise if you're Gen Y, then you had cable television. I do like cable. I was in California. I went to school at Anaheim Hills. I was at Canyon High School, and I went there, and 1982, 83, I saw the birth of what's that music station? Oh, someone in the chat room, help me out. MTV, what am I talking about? It's MTV. So that was all cable driven, and I liked that you could watch something that didn't have any shadows in it, like Ghosts, you know what I mean? So, yeah. And only when I came home again did I realize just how poor it was. Then when we went to digital television, HD TV really turned into, 1920 by 1080. When we went to that, to 16:9, and you saw the 4:3 images from the old telly, there's really no clarity there at all. I'm doing a tribute car to an old racing car driver. I'm trying to build it. I've got no money, and I'm unemployed right now. And if anyone has a job, it'd be great. Enterprise architect, by the way, principal enterprise architect, if you will, if there's something in wherever you work. So I'm doing a car, and there's very few photos of the car intact, because it was crashed, and the person I'm doing it for, he's passed away, and he didn't get to drive this last livery that was made for him, and I'm doing that one because I'm an idiot, right? But trying to find any detailed photographs of what the car looked like, inside or out, inside the trunk, if you will, or the engine bay, or just how the brake ducts were made at the front. Trying to find anything is really hard, because all the video of it is so blurred and, let's say, detail free, that you can't make anything out. Honest, it's ridiculous. We had such good imaginations that when we watched it, we were convinced it was good, because that's all we had. Oh well. Anyway, so as this news, back to the news. As this news has, actually that was really funny, Fletty. I've got to say, MTV, and it's been written empty V with a capital V. It's very cool. I appreciate you. That was fantastic, actually. It's very late here. We're because of daylight saving hour in Kentucky. We are 1 hour earlier, thank goodness. So our show starts at 10 p.m. here. What day is this? Tuesday. 10 p.m. on a Tuesday. But it's not. It's only 7 a.m. Tuesday in Kentucky. That makes sense. What are you going to do with all that junk, all that junk? It's Lady Trunk. Yeah, that's a line to a song, and I do like them. They're not bad. I haven't heard from them for a long time. I heard a whole bunch of stars, all the famous people who were on the Epstein list. Thank you for releasing the lists, 120 documents. That's well worth the wait, but how many, are there any that have been redacted still? Is that all we have, is 120 pages? Surely there'd be enough to fill, Encyclopedia Britannica with the amount of things that the paperwork that would be still somewhere. At least Bondi was able to get some of these out. Do you remember the Jan 6 committee and all the papers? Well, they were all destroyed as a task of the committee. So we'll never see. And they had collected all of the original documents on it and then destroyed them. And it's really appalling that they did that. I think everyone who took part in the destruction of that or ordered it should absolutely go to jail. That's what they should do. But who am I? I'm just some dude in Australia talking about things on the radio. Now, there are fears of an environmental disaster. I should put the middle straight on. There are fears of an environmental disaster off England's coast. I have to wait and see. I think there was still some crew that haven't been found. It's sad, and I really wish it didn't happen. I really do. All the plane incidences, whether they're colliding on the ground or in the air, whether they're failing and falling out of the sky or coming into land too heavy, like that one that, I forget the airport, it looked like a 737 or something, but I don't know what it was. And it came in hot. Now, I was in a plane that came in hot, faster than that too, by the way, but I saw something about the altimeter where it wasn't reading the correct height. So if you're doing an instrument landing in tough conditions, the instruments for the altimeter are telling you your height above ground or above sea level, because you have to extrapolate what it means. If you know the height of your runway, then above sea level, then you have to do the maths to work out how many feet you are. But you've got systems on a plane that tell you how high you are above the ground. It should make sense for you to come in on a glide path that means you don't slam the belly on the ground and bust off a wing. It's really what should happen. Yeah. I do some sim work, so I race a simulator, car racing. I've flown in aircraft simulators, and there's a feeling you get of a connection with the equipment that you're using. Distraction, how I opened the show in a cold open, talking about dash cams. There's an amount of negligence. Now, whether it's 0 or 0.001% or 100% negligence, there should be the least amount in order to do whatever it is you're doing. Even blinking. Say you had to blink because you had dust in your eye. there's no rules in America anymore, Dave. Yeah, yeah. I think everything's. I'll get to America in a bit. Just let me talk this one out. So, negligence, if you're operating heavy machinery, regardless of what it is, you should be above and beyond your capabilities, above and beyond. You should be the capabilities of the machine. You should be everything that it isn't is you. It's all on you. To be able to behave, to operate, to ensure the safety of not only yourself but everyone else around. You have to plot multiple objects at once with your brain, and you have to make sure that you've got collision detection turned on. Imagine it was a tick box in your brain. It needs to be turned on in order for you to be able to navigate all of the dangers and stop your vehicle, however it is, stop it in time so that everybody is okay. That's what you have to do. If you're flying an aircraft, you need to do a whole raft of tests before you take off, because it's not like you can just pull it up in the air, come to a rest without falling out of the sky, and say, oh, okay, well, what are we relying on here? You can't just change the oil or put some more water in the window washer. When you're in the air, everything is on the engine and the control surfaces. That's you. You're it. And if you didn't test them, or you've had a medical emergency yourself, and now you're slumped over the yoke, and you come in at 400 knots into the ground, it's still you. It was you. It's always you. Like the poor people on the ship that wasn't moving anywhere, that had its anchor. It was anchored off the coast of England in the fog. Those poor people there. Let alone the cost of the fuel, let alone the cost of the ship. I think it was rented out. It was leased to the US. You've got to think about all the things that are negatively impacted by it. It really saddens me. Can't believe someone would be so negligent as to run a tanker into another tanker. This is crazy. That's why I ask. I wonder if it's intentional, and who we may never know. And I don't want to call it out as being intentional. I just hope it isn't. And if it's negligence, I hope they find their way of being able to deal with what happened, because that's really PTSD material right there. Now I'm gonna move forward. Now Meki can't join us tonight. It's sad, and I hope he's feeling well. And I know the chat room. I know chat is saying, Meki, I hope you're okay. He is. He'll be okay. But the reason why I'm sad that Meki can't be here is because there has been a huge collapse in the stock. It's huge, but not from my perspective huge. It's really only taken the numbers back to, let's say, if it's 8335, where do we find 8335? Well, we find that back in October or thereabouts. Let me have a look. No, it's a bit hard to find it. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. That's why. It's really hard to navigate. But I think it was only August or something like that, right? Yeah, that's right, August. So in August, the stock prices compared to now, they're flat. So the value of the stock is only from August to now. So people call it an adjustment, or it was just overinflated, it needed to come down. But people made money on it collapsing today. So the same thing, S&P 500, the Dow Industrials, NASDAQ, that's all had a bit of a hit today of about 5% or just less than 5%, seeing how they've diverged in the last few days from being the same. And if you're watching this on screen, you'll see it. But if I paste this link into the chat room, chat can see it. There you go. And I've also got another one for chat. And if you are watching this in YouTube, you'll see it on screen, and the links will be in there so you can examine them yourself. So there was a huge departure today between the Dow and the NASDAQ and S&P 500. But when you look back far enough, and you go back to August or thereabouts, that's the departure. That's right there. That's how much has been lost. But if you go back, say you went back any greater length of time than August, well then it's only growth. Like, seriously, if you go back to 2021, it's growth. You know, the lowest point it was at was back in 2021, back in April. If I do the 10-year, you can see this huge crash that occurred back then in 2020. 2016, it started growing. So it grew until Biden got in, then it crashed, and then Biden all the way to 2024, and then it became, once it grew back again, it kind of remained stable, and then pretty much it's only in the last, I suppose. Yeah, you could call it if you want to. You can call it a crash because of Trump. You can, and that's why I'm a bit sad that Mackie wasn't here, because I know he was talking about this is not good news for everywhere. Australia's hoping that we don't go into a recession. America's hoping they don't go into a recession. I'm not a financial expert by any stroke of the imagination, any stretch of the imagination. I'm not. But I'm very cautious about how happy I see the right in the media and how sad I see the left. This is where I step back. If the left was positioning itself, instead of being emotionally distraught, instead of doing that, if they said to themselves, you know what, 4 years, we'll just wait 4 years and we'll go again and see if we win. If the right, for instance, if the right said, well, I'm glad we won. Now let's see how this plays out. If they said those things to themselves, we could be in a reasonably good place as a society. But because the left is crying and angry, using profanity everywhere, and this one person, is it Mockett? I forget who they are. Mock, Shock, and whatever the person's name is. They are saying and repeating over and over again that an illegal immigrant has not broken the law. And if you do it once, I think it's 6 months in prison. If you do it a second time, it's 2 years in prison. And it's a federal offence. The person is wrong in their statement that it isn't a crime. It is a crime, and there's a punishment for it. So I know that the rules in the past in the US have been a little lax, not the last 4 years. I mean, since the 80s. if you could get across and you could make a living for yourself, then it wasn't so bad. Not really so bad. And that's the big difference. Letting 12 million in is crazy. Trying to decriminalize it, assisting those persons come into the country illegally without just, what they could have done is just processed everybody instantly. Just gone, you know what, you're all allowed to just hear me out. So in the Bidenship of immigration, if they just stamped everyone coming in and said you're now legal, go for it, we'll help you, that's a different thing than unprocessed people coming in, because you really don't know who you get. If you fingerprinted everyone and said, well, doesn't matter anymore, we've got a record, we know who you are, what name do you want to use? And they say a name and you go, let's make it easier. And then you just give them that name, that's your name from now on, here you go. If they did that, there would be there'd be limited activity that could go on now. Sadly, I have to agree with Meki when he says that getting rid of all of the illegals is a bad idea because they hold jobs. This is all. Getting rid of anyone who has proven themselves to be a reasonable American by maintaining a job, getting a mortgage, not committing crime, I think those people should be given citizenship. Not doing any of those things, committing crime or worse, whatever those crimes are, being illegal, that's really bad. I think this is where Meki and I kind of drift a little. It's only in definition of how we describe the person. But if you do the worst first, as what the plan has announced as, if you do that and you clean your society of the people who really shouldn't be there, who aren't adding anything, but are draining the system, that's good, surely. If you say, look, you can try and come back in a year's time, give them some kind of allowable return date. Don't try and get here any sooner. Just wait a year and apply for entry, because you've been here. Why don't you just apply for it next time, and then we'll evaluate it. We'll return you home if it's unsuccessful. Yeah, but I don't want to go home, right? So, economy-wise, getting rid of those people, the worst first people, I'm going to reiterate, is better, I think. The cost of all of those and flying people around and putting them up at hotels just to trash the hotel, and they gave them an allowance to be able to buy fast food. People had no money. That's all really silly, and I don't mind the view of I like the common sense way of doing it, but I have to be reminded about what Meki says, and that is that just remember that they're billionaires. Just remember that they're members of the WEF. Just remember the Great Reset. I like the nationalism that's being promoted, but I don't like too much nationalism. I like the amount of activity that the government has, because normally they're so slow, they're glacial. If they were in a car race and they had a committee, there was a committee each for the brake and the clutch and the accelerator and the wheel, if they had committees for each of those, the car would just careen off the track. It wouldn't be able to deal at any speed with anything it had to negotiate and any of the other cars it had to encounter. And when you think about it like that, because I like racing, when you think about it like that, how does the government do anything? And what motivates them to make decisions if they're so slow acting? It would be like if you walked up to a mirror and you didn't see your reflection and you got bored and left, and then your reflection turns up an hour later. It's so ineffectual. And yet that's the way that we've been taught that that's how government works. It just is. It just does that. I mean, it works, but does it? I'm waiting for our government because we have an election that's about to be announced. We don't know when, but it's about to be announced, and it'll be in a month or two. That's it. And all of the players from both sides of politics here, we have our own left, which is kind of different to yours. We have our own right, equally different to your right. For some reason, your right and left got really mangled recently, and the left, who is meant to be all about the people, became all about the emotion, and the right, who is meant to be all, I'm going to put my hand inside big businesses' pants, in the pockets, mind you, even with a glove on, it's still icky. That's what our right and left used to be. It used to be all about the people, and now it's all about the emotion. And the right is still big business only. It's still big oil. It's still big coal. It's still anti-climate change. It's still, I've obviously drunk all the Kool-Aid on climate change, although I differ greatly from the people on the left who have not only had drunk all the Kool-Aid, they have a subscription to Climate Change Monthly, and Greta, I'm sure they have a poster of Greta on their wall, or at least they did when they grew up, right here, right now. So that's a Fatboy Slim opening. He uses Greta to open up the song right here, right now, and it just loops and repeats. It's really cool, but it starts with her entire speech. Yeah, it's great. You can find it on YouTube. Fatboy Slim, I think, right here, right now. Now, the governments here, we have a one party that is in power, and we have another party that remains in opposition, just like your Senate, yeah? And it's disappointing that it's not true democracy. It's an artificial democracy that is, there's supposed to be a winner, and it's a two-party system, and you have to vote with the party. You can't vote as a conscience vote, despite your beliefs. You must abandon your own belief and vote with the party. But then you're not representing your constituency, so it's not representative government either. And Question Time, or our Australian politics, is off the Westminster system, and it's just repulsive, and they just blurt rubbish out at each other in Parliament, and it's just like a high school. It's just like high school. There's cliques, and people that hate each other, and they'll say nonsense to each other, and they've got parliamentary privilege, which means they can't be held to account for anything that they say. If it were up to me, the first thing I would do is remove parliamentary privilege and allow them to be sued, allowed them all the free speech in the world. I would make free speech legal, but then you still have libel. You can still say something that you shouldn't say. So you have to be self-policing about how you entertain your freedom of speech. You can have an opinion, but if you said someone was a particular thing, whatever it is, they can then sue you if it's going to cause any damage to them at all. So that includes monetary value or emotional distress, and they can sue you for that. That's free. That's true free speech. And also litigation, free speech and litigation that comes with it. But we should be thicker skinned to do with free speech. But now I'll move on, because my point was about the Australian government. So the Australian government has these two parties, and it's nonsense television to watch them discuss anything, because everyone will take everything on notice. You'll never hear the point ever answered, and they will dance around without saying anything for such a long time that you forgot what the question was. Even if they're asked a yes/no question across the floor to the other party, they won't get an answer. Now, they are all completely entertained by it. Everyone in Parliament is entertained by it. They think this is what you do because it's what we've always done. And I would make all of that go away. All of it. It's preposterous. Really, they should read out a bill, and then they should have a vote on it. There shouldn't be anything else. And it's all mudraking and trying to get other people in trouble for something they didn't do. That's all it is. It's so awful. There's no unity. No one cares. It's not for the country that they do anything. It's for themselves. And everything's a little private win, because, I said that thing and they didn't like it. And the type of person, that narcissistic piece of filth that has earned their way into government, who's never wrong, never ever wrong, can't say a word wrong, though they are wrong, and attempts to avoid the yes or no with some blurb which just sounds like they're trying to find the answer. And one of my friends knows exactly what I'm talking about. And they're trying to find the answer that will make normal people give up asking the question. But as your Senate inquiries in the US, there's a Josh Hawley. I really dig how good he is, how efficient he is at being able to get people to say the right thing. We have people over here who they do try, but the parliamentarians are very clever at the way that they don't say anything. They don't answer the question, even though it's a yes or no, and they'll repeat something, or they'll point out something that's so minute and is a distraction. It's like the butterflies in the room. We had, without saying any more about it, we had recently here the Chinese warships, first time circumnavigating Australia. We got them all upset, so they decided to come down and do some live fire testing just off our shore between us and New Zealand. But all around the world, any live fire exercise requires 48 to 24 hours notice. Somewhere in that range. Somewhere in 48 hours to 24 hours notice in advance of you firing any weapon. You've got to tell them where it's going to be, how long it's going to go for, what kind of weapons you're going to use, and so that all your shipping or flights or whatever it is, can avoid the area. And it's a huge exercise to divert aircraft who have a particular amount of fuel usage calculated for them to then have to divert around something which could get them pretty close to landing on fumes with a great distance. So our parliamentarian, our Prime Minister, and then some other underlings had different responses to the media about, when did you hear about that? Oh, look at that, that's my voice. Fleddy has recorded my voice and then shown me what it looks like. I'm familiar with what waveforms look like, and that's not bad. Sometimes I'm on my meter here, it's a little low, so bear with me, and there's a bit of background noise because this room isn't entirely quiet. I do have to put some more soundproofing up. But anyway, yeah, I'm a little scratchy. It is high A octave. That's pretty cool. I don't have that. It kind of looks like Audacity, but I'm not sure. Tell me if it's Audacity or not, because that was my favorite. I've got software now that you can change the key that people sing in, and you can't tell. It's not an auto tune either, but you can just slide it and make any key, or you can make chords with their voice. Really cool. So anyway, so I watched this week. I've watched Malcolm Turnbull. He was one of the old prime ministers. Come out and talk about Trump, and possibly embarrass himself in doing so. I watched some other politicians. I don't want to say their names. Turnbull's safe. The other persons looked like they were trying to do really well, show themselves as being strong, but in the end just failed miserably. Like the Prince Andrew interview, if you've all seen how confident he was to confront the media about his links to Epstein, and then it was a train wreck. All it was just, it made him look worse than when we went in. He looks worse now than if he didn't do the interview. Isn't that nuts? So if he said nothing, he'd be in a better position. Now that he tried to say something, it's just blown out, and it's even worse for him. And now the Epstein files have been released, and who knows what's going to happen next. So anyway, so the Australian parliamentarians look like, before the election is being announced, they're all throwing their hat in the ring by going into the media and trying to prove themselves as worthy to lead the party that they represent. But all I'm seeing is they're all failing. It doesn't matter who they are. There isn't anyone any longer that is shown to be the common sense person, the financially responsible person, someone who wants to either shake it up or make things right, or fix or find abuse, and everything that you can see that's occurring in the US. I'm not talking about getting rid of anyone who's here, not my point. But we've seen, I think, the power, and they called it popularism, only to try to diffuse its strength, trying to diffuse a bomb. They wanted to make sure that this wasn't going to happen again. Let's call it something outrageous. Let's make it so it goes away quickly. In Australia, they changed the laws in Parliament recently, before calling the election, in a week or two. They made it so the amount of money per voter that votes for you that the party gets in total is more for the two primary parties and less for everybody else, which is wrong. It should be the same amount, one amount of person. Say it was $1.67. So imagine if you had 1 million votes, well, that would be $1.6 million that your party would get. Well, they've now made it so that the major two-party, because we live in what they call a two-party political system, that everyone else is going to be discouraged to be an independent because you won't get as much money. It's rigged. They've now made it just for themselves. Only for themselves. See, I recognized it being Audacity. Yeah. It is the best free one that exists. Yeah, totally. I use Reason because I write some music, so I use Reason for that now. I used to use Audacity all the time. But yeah, no, I do love it. Now, I've got to say, I've only got 1 minute left, so it's only enough to do my outro. I'm going to thank everyone for tuning in today for Platos Cave. I'm going to catch you again Thursday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Here in Australia. And then, I should say, like, subscribe, comment, and share anything you find of ours on the internet. Please help us make some money off this and get our viewership up and tell people about it. See you on Thursday.